We have not talked about we didn't talk about Crawford Spence aftermath. And then all the actual all the stupidity that comes after a fight like that. But go ahead. I mean, Crawford Spence was, I thought, great.
I heard from somewhere. I heard from somewhere they're going to do it again.
Well, Spence's trainer is saying he thinks he can beat Crawford again. Look, flat earthers have more credibility than a fighter's trainer when it comes to whether.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably the worst idea for a rematch I've ever seen.
It's pretty bad.
There is no reason for a rematch. Period.
Well, here's the issue I have with fight fans. The reality is we're seeing greatness with Crawford, and doesn't mean Spence isn't an outstanding fighter. It just means that he ran into somebody who is levels above him, or just a horrible matchup for him, or both. In this case, it looked a lot like both. So people are like, well, there's a rematch clause. And I go, okay, there's a rematch clause is going to be at 147. You don't write rematch clauses and be like, it's a blanket rematch clause at any weight class. That's not the way rematch clauses go.
Clearly, Spence is having trouble at 47.
Yeah, at 47, but at 47, if you're a big 47 or you're having problems getting down, you should see the power or an advantage there. Crawford did not, Spence did not have the power at 47 to be a problem for Crawford at all. Crawford had more speed, more power at 47, which means if he goes up, if he goes up 54 above, and Floyd's saying he needs to jump in at 160 something, I'm going, dude, he didn't even have power at 147. He's not going to have the power. If he goes up to the cruiserweight division, they're going to eat him alive.
Yeah, but he's blaming it on being sapped because of the weight loss, and he's saying that that'll give him more time to, it'll be a healthier weight for him, and he can carry his weight.
154 maybe, but not 168. I mean but you're still. I've heard more excuses out of the Spence camp instead of just.
Okay, so 68. So I thought you were saying 68. That I thought you were making a mistake. No. 68 is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Floyd was talking about him jumping into the 60s, 68. And he's like, he should never fight at 154, 147. He needs to keep going up. And I'm going, dude, he doesn't have the power at 47. He's going to get mauled by the elite fighters at the higher weight classes. No, those guys have real power at those weight classes. It's not going to go well. So you're hearing what's happened is basically everybody who is a big Spence fan, and there were a lot. And on this podcast, I just said flatly that Crawford is a better boxer and he's going to win the fight. The other people that were big Spence people don't know what to do with themselves, and they've made every excuse from neurological damage to dehydration to he has a concussion to he must have Lyme disease, whatever the fuck.
I can guarantee he has a concussion from the fucking fight.
Yeah, right. But yeah, they've made every excuse instead of just saying he ran into a fucking buzzsaw. And now because Crawford's going up and because Spence can't make 147, his career is in some real shit right now. Because what's he going to do? Move up to another weight class and get the shit kicked out of him all over again from start to finish? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just go one weight class up to the same guy who just whipped your ass and be like, hey, let's do it again. You're going to just get your ass whipped again.
I feel like what you're going to see with him when he moves up is a lot like what you saw with Nutter Taylor. He got just demoralized by Chavez, and then when he came back, he went up a weight class, maybe two. Now I think it was one weight class up to Terry Norris, and you just saw a man against a boy. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, I don't know. They might actually work a rematch in because Crawford's master plan is to wait for Charlo to fight Canelo and then to have Charlo go back down after that fight, no matter what, and fight for the belts, as opposed to his mandatory at 147, which is John Ennis, which would be a great fight but I think he's smart for moving up for the legacy fight, for the belts, and for it's a bigger money fight. It's a bigger. NS needs to have that title at 147 for a while, defend it a few times. What I realized, the stock and standard boxing fan, the people that aren't in the sport don't have a fucking clue who Jaron Ennis is. He's not a household name at all. So he needs to become a household name, which shouldn't be hard with that talent level. Once you have a couple of key fights that aren't pay-per-view, and I say they aren't pay-per-view because if they are pay-per-view, you're only going to have boxing nerds paying for it. You're not going to let the other people see it.
It's got to be on maybe a Wide World of Sports type of network, or maybe Showtime, which is terrible.
ESPN, Showtime's production. I love Dana White's rant on. They are terrible. That's the problem with boxing these days. Is every mediocre fight wants to be a pay-per-view, and how are you going to get new fans if all your good fights are just appealing to nerds that love boxing? You're 100%. Not. You and I became fans of the sport watching the biggest fights in the world for free on our TV when there were like 4 channels. And that's where all the boxing fans came from. And now all these guys have said, oh, this formula that worked so well to make me a fighter, me a fan, me a whatever, me a promoter, whatever it is, fuck this formula. We're just going to charge pay-per-views. If we get 150,000 of the hardcore fans, fine. And instead of getting 1 million eyes on and making, whatever you make, making new fans, bringing new eyes to the sport, they just bastardize it by forcing the hardcores to go ahead and buy some piece of crap with a mediocre undercard and a decent to good, solid main event. But it's not very rarely a great main event, other than the Crawford.
Fucking hook up with Dana is what I say.
I mean, they do it right. They've got a pay-per-view this weekend, but they'll start the first half of it's going to be free. And that first half of it, these guys are nobody who's on a pay-per-view card, even on the undercard, isn't a potential superstar or a very good fighter.
Right. Hey, you know what they're doing? They're saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate your business. Here's something for free. Boxing spits in your face.
Yeah, they're like, fuck you to the fans. Fuck. And by the way, people shit on Dana too. I see how these idiots go, it's going to be so much better when he's gone. Wrong. He's the only one that's ever done it right. I mean, all these, but Bellator is being sold. Bellator was the biggest competitor. It's being sold to the PFL. At least I think it is. I don't know if the deal's going to go through. But, nobody knows how to run these things like he does. He is a master at running it and slapping women. He's great at those two things.
Yeah.
So we have